friends, and welcome back to the SMJ-Tech channel. I hope you all are safe from the pandemic nowadays. Now, jumping to our Excel tutorials. A lot of us use Excel day in, day out, and we often wonder if we can restrict or, apply some validations so that anyone who's entering data into our sheet or any form that we have given is uh, is not allowed to make mistakes which can hamper or uh, you know uh, disrupt the overall function of the sheet. So that's where data validation comes in. By default, Excel doesn't have or doesn't apply validations on any of the cells. However, it provides you an option to apply data validations through some built-in features. So let's see how it goes. So first, we'll head over to. I'll show you what data validation is. It's in the Data tab. Under the Data tools, you can see the data validation. So data validation is basically a way for you to validate the data that is being entered in your Excel sheet. So it has in the main drop down, you can see three options. Data validation. This is the main area where you can apply the criteria and rules on a particular cell or a range of cells. Second is the circle invalid data. This is basically whatever selection you have selected and press this button. It will show you if there's any invalid data which is surpassing or not matching the criteria defined in the data validation. And third is obviously you want to clear out any circles highlighted above. So we'll go through each one of these in today's video. So firstly, I have a sheet over here which is supposed to show some payment statuses, and today I'll be showing you how to apply data validation for this particular sheet. I have left out one row for you for easy understanding on what type of data I am expecting to be entered over here. So let's start off. So first things first, we will be going through in a random manner based on the number based on the column we're at, so that will be easier for you to understand. So over here I have an ID which shows me that the kind of validation I could apply on it should be equal to number. So by default, Excel gives you an option of any value. So you're allowed to enter any value in that range that you have selected. So one thing that you must remember, that whatever cell or the range of cells you have selected, data validation will be applied on those cells. For example, if I've selected only up till 16 and I'm using any data validation over here, only then it will show you that validation active. However, if I select a cell which I have not selected during my other selection criteria, it will show you any value. So we have to ensure that we are selecting the number of cells or range of cells that we want to apply data validation on. So over here we'll be getting on to the custom one shortly. So by default, Excel has any value allowed. Now I can either limit it to whole number or I can define a custom formula. Now custom allows you to use a formula for data validation. Now why I'm going to use a custom formula first is that obviously ID should be a unique value. So I want to make sure that my selection has this value, whichever is being entered, appearing only once or less than once. So if it's more than once, then it means it's duplicate. So how to go about it is, first I will put an equal to sign, so it will tell Excel that I am going into formula mode. I will use the countf function that we covered in our one of our previous videos, how the usage of countf and countf-s. So it basically counts on increases a count based on a criteria given. And since I want my range to remain static, I also covered this in one of my previous videos, that if you want to define a static range to a formula that you want to spread across on different cells, you should always use $, which tells Excel to keep this value constant, and only the areas where dollar is not preceding, those would be changed as per the cell value. And right now I'm standing at A9, right? So I'm starting this off from A9, and it should be less than or equal to 1. So this means that the count of the ID that I'm entering should be less than 1 or equal to 1. It will become 1 once I enter that ID, and it will be less than 1 if it's not. Okay, before I press OK, there are a couple of tabs up here. One is the input message, which I want to show my user. For example, this will be this will show a tooltip kind of a dialog box to the user, that what he wants to do, or what he needs to do rather. So I will mention that it's a unique payment ID. Enter payment ID. And the other tab is showing an error alert. So basically I want to show an error whenever an invalid option is done or any data validation rule is violated. So duplicate value. I will mention that duplicate ID is not allowed. So I will press OK. So you can see immediately starts showing a unique payment ID tooltip over here. It's not showing anywhere else. As soon as I hover on to or select the cell where unique ID needs to go in, it's showing the user over here. Also, now let's see, if I enter it, I already have 1001. Let's say if I enter the same ID again, I want to see if it works. It immediately prompts me that duplicate ID is not allowed, and please retry or cancel. If I retry, it will go into the edit mode, and I will, let's say, enter 1002. If I even enter 1002 again, and if I press cancel, it will clear the contents. So now I have successfully applied data validation on my first column, and I'm only allowed to enter a valid unique ID. Now let's move on to our second column. So let's see which one would be most appropriate for this one. Right now it's on any value. It's a description, so the most appropriate one for this would be a text length. So I can define that the length of the text that's being entered in description shouldn't be too long. So let me just define that it should be less than 10 characters, just to make it interesting. Input message, I don't want to show anything over here. I don't want to show anything. It's a description. Okay, one more thing, that multiple type of styles. One is stop, so it will immediately stop you from entering anything incorrect. The other one is that will give you a warning but still allow you to enter. So let's try this one out and let's see what happens. So over here, I'm going to enter uh, limit exceeded, only 10 characters allowed, only text of 10 characters allowed. Let's see what happens. So you can see immediately it shows an error over here, a notification that this cell is already in contradiction to the validation. We'll see why. So I have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So it's 16 characters, and it shows me that only text of 10 characters is allowed. Do I want to continue? I have an option to yes. If no, I will be taken back to the same. If I press yes, it allows me to move forward without making too much of a fuss about it. So if I enter only region 3, that falls within the 10 characters, so it doesn't say anything to me. So we have applied two types of validations now. Let's move on to our third column, which is a date. So if you recall, you'll see a date over here. I did some testing before you guys came along, so there's some validation still in place. So I change it to any value and I select date, and I want to round that date to be from, let's say, 1st of January 2020 to 31st of December 2020, and I don't want to show anything over here. And in case someone enters an incorrect date, I want to show them an information that date range exceeded, only year 2020 dates are allowed. Let's press OK and let's see what happens. So this one is already within the range. So let's try something different. I go over here and give it a date of January 2021. It shows me an information dialog box. Only year 2020 dates are allowed. However, it's still allowing me to proceed by saying OK. By saying cancel, it will obviously clear the contents. So I'll proceed. Now I enter 5 of July 20, which is also within range, so it doesn't give anything else. Let's try a date that's before 2020 just to make sure. Let's say it's 8th of November. It's 2019. It again gives me this error, and this time around I go to cancel and it will clear whatever I have typed in. So where we've applied the data validation as well, let's try the time one. Okay, let me select the data validation. Do you want to extend these cells? Yes. So this is the time-based validation that I've applied. I want to select time from the drop-down, allow time, and the time should be equal to 10 a.m. For example, I'm fussy that I want my payments to be done at 10 a.m., no later than that. I'm just that kind of a guy. I'll remove this, and I want to show a warning error that payment time has passed. I'll still take the payment, but I want to show that time has been passed, and so that anyone who's entering this data knows that this is not a valid time to pay. So let's say first one is A-OK. Let me try 10 p.m. I'm a late comer, and it shows me that payment should be made at 10 a.m. but you want to continue. I said yes. Let's say I'm slightly early, 9:59 a.m. Still gonna say that I'm not gonna take any payment before 10 a.m. So I'll go back. I'll say no. I'll make a payment at 10 a.m. to make you happy. So this is the time-based validation. Now another validation that comes in. This time round, I'm not going to show you any pre-selected data. So okay, now there's another kind of validation. This is list-based validation. Now there are two types that can be followed in the list as well. Firstly, if you select this checkbox in cell drop, it will give you a drop down in the cell, so you can select from the drop down. If you don't, it will only allow those values that you have given in the source, but it won't show you any drop down. So let's see how it goes. So this time, let me show you if I have a source available, or I have somewhere in my sheet or other sheet from which I want to select this data or this list. Let's go over there. So I press this arrow, head over to the part in my sheet where I have listed down these quarters, and I'm not going to check mark this right now, and I'm just simply going to stop without any errors. Let's see. You see there are no drop downs over here. So let's say if I enter Q5, it gives me an option to retry. I enter Q2, and all of a sudden it's allowed. However, let me also show you the same thing by selecting this checkbox, and let's see what different happens. You can see that it's giving you options to select the quarters as per your need, so you don't have to make any errors. Moving on to our next column is again going to be a list data validation. However, you can see that you can also apply list validation on comma separated values. You can define, for example, I want to mention open closed, rather it would be open pending cancelled. Got to work on my spellings. So I have defined these comma separated values instead of giving it a source. I'm not going to show any input messages, and I want to show that this is the only selectable option here. So you can see that it's going to show me the type of complaints, the type of payments with their statuses from this drop down list. Moving on to our next data validation. Yes, it's a whole number. So I'm going to show you two types of validation on the same column. First one is the whole number. You can see that let's say I want to use a maximum amount of 10,000 as my payment amount. I know none of my payments is going to surpass 10,000. However, I'm not going to restrict them. I'm just going to leave out them with a warning. Payment limit exceeded, rather payment amount exceeded. Payment limit is 10,000. Okay, so what happens is that I'm allowed to make any payment which should be less than 10,000. Let's say the moment I go above 10, it says that payment limit is 10,000. Do I want to continue? I said no. I'm going to only pay 10,000. Now, the interesting part is it won't allow 10,000 even because I selected less than 10,000. If I would have selected less than or equal to 10,000, which should be the case, it would have allowed me the same. So let me correct my validation. I head over here and I go to settings, and instead of less than, I'll say less than or equal to. Now if I enter 10,000, it's a permissible amount. Okay, so we have applied the data validation type of whole numbers. Now the last remaining type is decimal. So let's give it a range. Let's say that I want my payments to range between 2,050 to 10,000 to 11,000, let's say. Now you can see that the two of these are falling okay. However, this one is giving a data validation error, which is showing it on the cell. So we've covered all types of data validations. Now let's see what circle invalid data does. Let's say I select this. So immediately it shows or highlights the columns or cells in my sheet where the data validation rules are being violated. So it's easier for me to see in quick glance where the problems might come from. So this is to highlight your data immediately, and once you're done with the highlighting part or correcting those data, you can clear the validation circles and the circles will go away. So folks, this was the covering of data validation on Microsoft Excel, how you can use it. And anyone who's creating sheets, I would say or recommend them to use data validation, so that make sure that anyone who's using those sheets are providing the correct data and it's being validated properly through Excel using its predefined functions. I hope this sheet will give you some ideas, and this video will be helpful for you in creating new data validated sheets. And if you liked the video, please click the like button and remain subscribed to the channel to keep listening to these informative videos. Until our next video, please take care of yourselves, stay safe, and bye bye.